Bill King, good to join us. Usually Wednesdays, 12:30, giving us some of his time. I wondered though if Bill, because if I did a morning show the day after the election, knowing that I probably was awake, I'd have taken a nap. Bill, did you get any sleep last night, or did you just go from watching election returns to show prep and right into the show?
I really had no plan, but I thought I was just going to make it all the way through, but I passed out at about 1:30. Didn't realize it. I mean, I was just watching. Next thing I know, I woke up, it's like 3. So I missed about an hour and a half there, and then I was kind of groggy. I got to get up a little bit after that anyways for a morning show, so I got a little bit of sleep, not much.
Yeah, I think we're all feeling the grogginess today. One thing we got into yesterday when the SEC office came out with this fine for Dan Mullen, and it's the same amount of money that the SEC is fining Lane Kiffin for two, diametrically opposite things. Kiffin gets the same fine for a retweet that Dan Mullen gets for contact with an official, not having control of his team in a halftime fight. I mean, take your pick. I can't understand why these two fines are identical. Can you?
Well, I agree with you, and I don't think they're equal either. I mean, Dan Mullen, when a coach runs on the field, obviously in a aggressive way, to me that signals high testosterone, 18 to 22-year-olds, let's go. Now, he might not have said let's go. I'm pretty sure he didn't. But at that age, lots of people are looking to fight, right? And you're in a high-intensity ball game. And he sent the wrong message there. Now, the Gators are saying, well, he's taking up for his players. I know he was. But you're also sending a bad message. So I'm like you. I would have had a separate charge or fine for that. But in sports, whether it's the SEC or whether it's pro sports, the officiating crew is wholly tyrannical. And you're not allowed to talk about them, and you're not allowed to comment on them. It's pretty much a standard rule right across the board. And, yes, something as harmless as a retweet. So I'm not shocked there, but it's pretty silly nonetheless.
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't know why Mullen wasn't ejected from the game. I'm watching the Steelers and the Ravens. One of the Ravens' defensive players makes an inadvertent contact with an official as he's trying to get away from someone pulling it away. He's disqualified from the game for that. Do you think that the reason Mullen is not suspended or wasn't disqualified has more to do with it Florida plays Georgia this Saturday than anything else?
Yeah, the eve of the cocktail party. Oh, I don't know. I think they probably just don't want to suspend him. They don't want to get into the habit of that. Not that we see a lot of that anyways, but I just think they didn't want to go down that. And then now, are you bound to start suspending people, and then are you going to be comparing it and everything else? So I just think they wanted to stay out of that whole mess. Would be my guess there. I don't think there's a fix in there for Florida or anything. I wouldn't think that.
Okay, we'll just stick to them fixing things for Auburn and Alabama. I want to ask about A&M because I was really impressed with them on Saturday, and I think the conversation that we had last week is, we've been waiting for A&M to take this step forward under Jimbo Fisher. This was supposed to be the year, and we hadn't necessarily seen it yet. They lose to Alabama, but what I saw against Arkansas from Kellen Mond from that offensive line, is this what the Aggies fan base, the administration was hoping for when they hired Jimbo Fisher? Because that looks right now like they could be the second best team in the SEC.
Yeah, they're getting there. They will be favored everywhere. They've got a game at Auburn coming up. They got to go to Knoxville. They're not certainly going to be an underdog there. So, yeah, the rest of the way they're clear. The toughest games are out of the way for them for the most part. Unless Auburn plays like they did against LSU, then maybe we've got a conversation. But they're up and down. It's an impressive team right now. I don't think they're good enough to eventually get to the playoff conversation, but I think they're building in the right direction for sure.
Speaking to Bill King here on Halftime. Bill, let's get your thoughts on the Tennessee-Arkansas matchup coming up. And I posed a question earlier to our listeners, and we've had several text in. And I was curious about your opinion. Who has more pressure heading into this Saturday for Arkansas-Tennessee? Because I feel like with Arkansas, I think a lot of people would agree that they've exceeded expectations. They've already got the 2 wins, which a lot of people predicted preseason, and they have. If everything plays out right, you might have the chance to finish this year 4-6, 5-5, depending on how this thing goes. Then you look at the opposite side of the spectrum in Tennessee. They've really been struggling as of late. So I'm just curious from your standpoint, who has the most pressure to come away with the W on Saturday?
Yeah, I think you're right. Tennessee does. Tier 3. This is a year that you were supposed to be able to go toe-to-toe, maybe not win, but be competitive with Alabama, Georgia. For a half, they were competitive with Georgia, had the lead at halftime. And then, of course, Florida game's down the road here. And they had a total implosion against Kentucky. The first 2 scores were pick sixes. And then basically the team just had nothing in them and got beat up pretty good, as you saw, in Knoxville. So they've got some soul-searching. The other problem, and they've got various issues, but quarterback's a mess. Jared Garantano is at best inconsistent. He'll have his moments where he gets hot, but he's also a turnover machine. He can do it in flurries, too. I mean, he can do it in astonishing fashion at times, and he loses confidence as well. The defense has been pretty good for them relative to ability, but that's even been a problem. Heck, after the Kentucky game, they didn't get mad at Garantano. They fired the defensive line coach. So it's pretty weird up there right now, guys.
Want to jump back to last week before we kind of move forward and see what's happening around the SEC this week. For me, obviously the Missouri-Florida brawl that happened with Dan Mullen that we just previously talked about. For me, I was shocked. My mouth hit the floor. Auburn smacking LSU the way that they did. Good Lord. I don't think anybody was expecting Auburn to beat LSU, period, with a 3-point favorite, but then beat them the way that they did. What were you more surprised by, Auburn beating LSU the way they did, or the way LSU just came out completely flat in that ball game?
Boy, little of both. I had that game circled. I thought that had a chance to be a fantastic game. And early it was a TKO. Young quarterback TJ Finley looked like a true freshman. Really didn't get anybody to play. Nobody responded. Looked like a poorly coached team. Looked like an unmotivated team. Looked like a team that didn't have any fight back in them at all. It was humiliating. I mean, it was god awful. And I kind of thought they'd hit a stride. South Carolina's a pretty solid team. I mean, they're decent, and LSU handled them well at home and looked like they had found kind of a little bit of a rhythm. Not the case. I was shocked too.
Outside the SEC, I just want to get your thoughts on this, too, because I've got a real close friend of mine. He's a big-time Michigan Wolverine fan. And Michigan, and again, laid an egg as far as Jim Harbaugh and that coaching staff and losing to a Michigan State team that they had no business being in that ballgame with. And we always talk about how hot that seat is for Jim Harbaugh moving forward. But I think after this loss, that seat's got to have charcoal and everything burning underneath him right now.
He's got a year left on his contract, long contract, but 1 year left, 2021. And I don't know what they're thinking, plus or minus. I don't think Ward Manuel is the AD there. I remember him as a recruit out of Louisiana. And Rich Rodriguez, Brady Hoke, but historically they're not all that. Gary Moeller, I'm starting to name them, but they're not that quick to want to fire people unless it's for cause or something. And he's one of theirs. He's not beating Ohio State anytime soon. He hasn't beaten them yet. He just lost to, as you refer to, Michigan State, which is an inferior opponent that lost to Rutgers. Now, they turned it a little misleading, though. They turned it over 7 times in that game. So it might not have been the true story of that outcome. Still lost to Rutgers, though. I don't know what they do with Harbaugh, and here's the question. Let's just say you decide, because the payout's not real big anymore, to run him off. Who's your answer? Right. I mean, you just went and got the savior. You just went and got the savior. I don't know the next one.
Bill, last thing here. Which game do you think is more entertaining or will have more to do with the playoff committee, the way they look at things, Florida, Georgia, or Clemson, Notre Dame?
Oh, right now, Clemson, Notre Dame, without question. Now, if Notre Dame proves not worthy, that'll be out of our conversation late Saturday night. But it's at Notre Dame. Notre Dame will be easily the best defense Clemson's played. And they're going in there with a true freshman, DJ Uiagalelei. I've been practicing that for years, so I'm good with it.
Well done.
Yeah. I started that about literally 2 years ago when he committed. So I was ready for this moment.
Impressive.
Right? Yeah. So I still don't think Notre Dame beats them, but I think it can be a close game. Ian Book in the passing game has been a bit inconsistent. The offensive line's outstanding for Notre Dame. If they can hang in there and keep it close. Now remember the last time they played Clemson. Now I don't mean the playoff game, which was bad last year, but regular season it was a really good game. Came down to the end. Came down to a 2-point conversion to tie it up and maybe go into overtime. So I could see it maybe being close, but I just don't see the Irish winning it.
One last time, Bill. DJ's last name, please help me out.
Uiagalelei. Now, the trick is it's not Lele. Uiagalelei. That inflection there is the tricky one, I think. You got to go slowly.
Uiagalelei.
I'm going to spend the last segment of the show just practicing that.
Lele. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Lale. It's like, how long did it take you to pronounce Tagovailoa correctly? It's the same with this.
Not sure I'm doing it right now.
We appreciate your expertise on all of this
phonetics there.
Pronunciation.
Phonetics with Bill King.
That's right.
There you go.
Phonetic king of
Thanks, Bill.
college football, Bill King.